Ideally, I do like to start the episode off by just having the guest introduce themselves and sort of let the audience know, who they are and what they do. So if we could start there, let's start there.
I'm FreakBait, internet trickster god, I guess. I don't know. I kind of fell into that accidentally. I'm I guess, an artist or a comedian of sorts online. I'm not quite sure how to categorize myself.
I think that's a great place to start. I mean, I do have some questions here that I like to ask everybody. So we'll do those first, and then I'd love to sort of get into how things got started and I kind of love that you don't really even know how to explain yourself because I'll say just off the top here, when I first found your work, I was with a friend and I was looking at some stuff and I was like, I showed it to them and I'm like, how do I explain this? Like, what do I showed it to him. I was like, how would you, yeah. So I want to get into that because, obviously now I've spent more time with your work. I've done some research and I think I get it. maybe,
Might
maybe
get
I
it better
don't.
than me.
I mean, we'll find out. But you are freak bait. I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for doing this. And the first
Absolutely.
question
It's a
that,
pleasure.
yeah, the first thing I like to ask everybody is what the relationship with death is like. Is it something that you worry about? Do you think about it a lot? What do you consider
I
your relationship with death?
I feel like death is a fact. It's not a tragedy like how I guess living through someone else's death could be tragic, but your own, it's just gonna happen.
Sure.
And it's kind of a motivating factor. I view it as like more of a compass rather than a period. It's a boundary that gives shape to time that I have. It's
Yeah.
I feel like it's a guarantee. So it definitely motivates me because I know that I'm guaranteed to die one day. So I better take advantage of the time I have.
Yeah.
Outside
Yeah.
of just the concept of me dying, death itself, I'm obsessed with it. Like the podcast name, I'm fascinated by the morbidity of death. Like sometimes it's really gross or really brutal, and then also the existential kind of like what is death? Is it just the end, or is it just some kind of a biological conclusion, or is there something more? I don't know. It's kind of I love the idea of death. It's the biggest question.
I like the idea of using it as motivation. I go back and forth with that thought constantly, right? Where I'm just like, you only have so much time. Most people don't even know how much time they've got. It's
Hmm.
definitely, I think, something worth using as a motivator. And then sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I go the complete opposite way where I'm like, well, I'm just gonna die one day. So like, who gives a shit? I feel like I feel like I just keep going back and forth. That's one of the many different versions I think of the obsession I have is the idea of this should be motivating me. This should be making me go outside and live my life and do things and see people. And then other times I'm just like, well, no one's gonna remember and nothing matters. So what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, I feel like death is kind of just like memento mori. One day you will die, and so if you keep that as a motivating factor, that it could happen at any moment too. And it
Yeah.
can happen in the most banal moments. You could be like on the way to the grocery store and get into a car accident, or just something like that. You
Yeah.
oftentimes you don't even get a warning. Like only the luckiest get the warning, I guess. I don't know how lucky you are if you get a warning necessarily.
Right? Yeah, I guess that's a good question to sort of start asking people too, right? Is if you and whatever, there's obviously the very typical like, would you want to know when you're going to die and how it happens? And I've had those conversations, and I go back and forth on that as well. But yeah, you're right. I guess there are people who just like go to sleep, right? They just like go to bed and they just don't wake up. And that's kind of a bummer, I guess, in many ways, but like also in the sense of like I feel like boring's the wrong word, but it's kind of boring. Like it's
Yeah,
such a bummer way to go is just like, oh, I'm gonna take a nap or I'm just gonna go to sleep tonight, and then it's just over.
I feel like a lot of death is like that. At least me or humanity in general, puts a lot of emphasis on death on the end, and then when it actually happens, the actual act of dying it's kind of like taking a shit. It's just kind of natural. It's a normal,
Yeah.
boring thing. And sometimes, it's accompanied, or oftentimes it's accompanied with actually taking a shit. But it's
Yeah.
kind of like one of those natural body functions, and it's not something, glorious, or something big, like how we view it as this, big phenomenal moment, because it's very special to us. It's the end of this, ride that we got. So it's important to us, but then death is happening all the time, constantly. There's constantly people dying, or animals dying, things dying. And it's just a natural biological phenomenon that it doesn't really have anything special of it. It's like taking a shit.
Yeah, I mean, immediately my mind just goes, well, dying on the toilet would be kind of cool. I mean,
Yeah,
Elvis died on the toilet, I believe. That's the rumor, at least. I don't know
yeah.
if that has ever been officially confirmed, but I mean I think that's better than dying in your sleep.
Less
Dying.
mess to clean up.
It's yes, for everybody else, maybe it's not ideal, but I mean, I just look at it like it's the last thing you're gonna ever do, right? So uh, laying down and not really getting to experience it at all is kind of a bummer, I think, to me. And I don't know. Now I think I kind of want to die in the toilet.
Yeah. Maybe you can go like Aldous Huxley, where you take a bunch of LSD on the toilet, so you're like experiencing, breaking through the veil, and also being able to relieve yourself without worrying about messing up your pants or anything.
I've heard a lot of people talk about doing just like mass amount of drugs like before they go. There's this guy, I interviewed him years ago, and he had this insane trip on salvia. Have you ever taken salvia before?
Oh yeah, quite a lot of times. Yeah.
Have you had crazy experiences with it?
Oh yes, it completely reshaped my idea of what consensus reality is. Basically, back in like high school too,
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
gas stations and picking it up.
Yes. So that was I did it in high school once too, but nothing really happened.
Really?
I had some friends do it and they freaked out. I had a buddy just stand up and just sprint out of the house. Like some people lost their minds, and I not literally nothing happened to me. It was quite a bummer. I'd love to hear your
Oh
experience
man,
with it. Just quickly here. So I'm blanking on the guy's name. I'm going to try and pull it up here at some point. But I interviewed him years ago, and he told the story about doing salvia for the first time, and he had never done a drug in his life.
that's a good one to start with.
He completely sober his entire life. Whatever reason, his friend goes, I bought this salvia. Let's try it. They load up a bong, and he takes a monster rip of salvia. And from his recollection, he sinks into the floor and then pops back up in like a lake or a river, and is essentially like surrounded by what he assumes are friends or people he knows. And he was, had an accident in the water, and they're like reviving him. And then all of a sudden he's just living this new life with a new job in a new town with these new people. And
Absolutely.
it lasted for him, in his mind, it lasted for 8 years. And he
Yeah.
essentially he essentially got to the point where he thought that his old life or his real life was something he dreamt up, and that this was actually his real life. And then one day he just sinks back into the ground and pops back up, and he's back in his normal life with his friend and his family. And I think he was out for like 15 seconds, but like felt like 8 years. And so when we were talking about death and everything else on the podcast, he goes, I think I'm going to do another bong rip of salvia like on my deathbed and just get another 8 years. And I was like, that's kind of genius if it works, because
So, what
it,
if after you wake up and it's just a bunch of your friends standing around you going, "Hey, did it work?"
I know, right? I guess it's kind of a bummer if you're like children and like their kids and everyone's just like around you and you're like, honey, get the bong. I'm not leaving yet. But it was an interesting idea. I don't know if that's something I would be into. I do love, some mushrooms every once in a while. But again, my brain doesn't take me anywhere that exciting. But what was your experience with salvia like?
So salvia, I did it dozens of times back in the day. Like in high school, it was one of the easiest to get, heavy psychedelic drugs. You can go to the gas station and pick it up, and they had all sorts of different concentrations. They had, I remember getting 150X, and it was like strawberry flavored.
Yeah.
and we'd smoke it out of a bong with a torchlighter. There was this whole ritual that you have to do to actually get like to break through. And because I always felt like salvia, I didn't do DMT until later, but after I did DMT, I was like, oh, salvia is like the mean, scary cousin of DMT. DMT is like the chill. I mean, it can be intense, but it's really almost peaceful. But then salvia is always intensely terrifying.
Yeah.
Like it always feel like you'll hit it, and then I always every single time I felt like there was this tsunami behind me that was like closing. If you've ever read the book or seen, there was a movie, The Langoliers by Stephen King, about
Oh,
these like big fuzzy things that ate reality, and it felt like that. It was like this tsunami that would come in and be eating reality behind me until the only thing that existed is where I was. And then there was so many different trips, like how you said how he experienced 8 years. I experienced a lifetime where I smoked it, and then I was a child, like I was a little kid, and I
yeah.
went to school and I grew, and it was like an entire lifetime.
Wow.
And then I came out of it, and I was reeling with the fact that, like, what if this is just that? Like, I'm gonna die, and then I'm gonna wake up, and it's just gonna be another drug trip, and it's just
You
what is
just
that, a
start all over
Jacob's
again.
ladder kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, here we go again. But it's a completely, and you don't have memories of the last reality. It feels like a drifting dream. Like when you try to wake up and remember a dream, and the
Yeah.
deeper you
Yeah.
dig into
Yeah.
it, it's like holding on to sand. And that's oftentimes what it felt like with Salvi. It was so intense, and it's hard to really describe the full thing, because like there was one time I smoked it, and then I was like laying on the ground, and every single carpet fiber had a different independent personality, and they all had like
Wow.
network between each other with memories and everything. It was really intense.
That
But
sounds wild. I'm so jealous.
yeah,
I mean, maybe
it,
I should try it again. I was like 18 when I did it, and just such a bummer.
it was my first experience with ego death, and that's how it really shifted the entire like how this is all just kind of a trip. It's like a big trip that we're experiencing. It's like a psychedelic trip,
Yeah.
and we're just along for the ride while we can. It's kind of a phenomenon of physics, I guess.
Yeah.
We're just along for the ride.
Were you ever a believer in reincarnation? Did this ever have like any sort of effect on how you felt about that? I
I
mean,
would. I'm a major skeptic of any type of like afterlife or anything. I would love if it was real. I would love if reincarnation was real.
yeah,
Um, because that would be great to be able to live it through again. Even if I don't have the memories that I have now, I just get to relive a new life. I would
yeah,
love it, even if it was a cockroach. Just to live again. That would be
yeah,
great.
yeah. And I don't know if I'd go cockroach, but to experience life like in like a just a completely different type of experience, whether that's like an animal or a tree, whatever it is.
A
Um,
tree would be wild.
it would be wild. I mean, trees. I don't know if I'm bold enough to say trees have like a conscience, but it does seem like they have ways of communicating, whether it's just with each other. I don't know. That's a whole other podcast.
Absolutely,
But
yeah. Yeah.
um,
Trees die too, though, so
they sure
you
do.
can
Yeah,
bring
yeah,
it back in.
they definitely do. I don't know if you've ever gone down like the Reddit rabbit hole of reincarnation, but if you're really looking to just get into it one night, go on Reddit and just look into or look up like a reincarnation thread. There was one thread that I think I lost it. I'll see if I could find it. I'll send it to you. But there was a thread. I mean, very much like a very viral Reddit thread where one person was just like, hey, I was talking to my 6 year old and they told me about, their life that they had before this one and how they picked me. And that's like a very specific thing that so many children say is like, oh, I picked you to be my parents and I had, this life before and this happened and this is who I was and whatever. There was one story that I remember about this little girl who had an imaginary friend. She's 6 years old and she's telling her parents about her imaginary friend and how her imaginary friend has this little white dog and all these like very little specific things. And then one day they're like going through a photo album and she's like, "Hey, there's my imaginary friend." And it was like her mom's great grandfather and he had this little white dog. And it was just like all these just like weird stories that then developed into, oh, well, this is what my kid said. And then it just turns into this wild reincarnation thread of just, and it was so specific where it was like 4 to 7 years old. Like the age range was like so dead on with like it's crazy. I don't know.
And then
Again,
they
it's
just
like,
lose all memory of
and
the
then it just,
previous life. And
yeah, it
then,
just sort of goes away. They get to a certain age where, like, the parents are not really documenting it, but there are. I don't know. I could do a whole. Maybe I got to start a reincarnation podcast because I could talk about that forever. But
yeah,
it's wild. Like I said, if I'm gonna try and find that thread, I'll send it to you. It's really interesting.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So the other question that I'd really like to ask everybody, and this is sort of a new one, that I not a lot of people seem to have an answer for, and that's okay if you don't. But I'm always curious. Do you remember the moment you realized that you were going to die? Like, was there an age or was there a moment? Like, I'll say just briefly. I can. It's one of those moments where a thing happens and you're like, oh, I remember exactly where I was, kind of thing. I remember having the realization, and it's just kind of stuck with me forever. Was there a moment? Is there anything you could remember where you had that realization that you were going to die one day?
I don't know if I can quite place like the exact moment. I know some people can place like right when they gain consciousness.
Yeah.
They're suddenly on a playground at 4 years old,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, I'm an independent being." But I don't
Yeah.
know if I've ever. I remember being exposed to media that had death in it, or having
Hmm.
pets and stuff that died. But I don't remember ever really the first moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm going to die one day.
Yeah.
This is going to end."
Yeah, that's okay. It's interesting. I haven't asked a ton of people, but I don't know why. And maybe this is part of just like the obsession that maybe the spark of the obsession. But man, I remember exactly where I was, exactly what happened, and it's like melted in my brain, and like that feeling just like never went away. And I had been to funerals before and didn't even realize I was going to die one day. It was literally just like it just clicked, where I was like, oh shit, that's going to happen to me too. And I think part of my whole mission of this podcast now is just trying to find other people who actually also remember that, because it doesn't seem to
Yeah,
be that many. I guess it's like something that you slowly sort of realize over time, or maybe you do have a specific moment, but you just don't remember. But
I think it
I don't
was
know.
more like that. I must have
Yeah,
been like just so young that I don't have the memory of it because it's
yeah,
always just been in the back of my head, like, "Oh yeah, you're going to die one day," and
yeah,
I never was too scared of it because there's no control over that. It was more what I'm more scared of is not being able to get all the stuff out before I die. I have so many ideas and projects that I'm juggling, and if I die before those are all done, then you know all I am is what I leave behind. So I don't want to not leave anything behind.
yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because literally the first question that I have written down here is, did death or mortality play a role in how you first started creating art? And if there was like any specific sort of spark that like pushed you to start creating. But I would, I was wondering, obviously, like, also if death played a part in that, and it seems like it did.
Oh yeah, it is my probably my number one motivating factor. That if I don't get everything out in time and I die before I get all my ideas out or projects, I got a list full of projects. I got a big whiteboard next to my desk full of things that I still have to complete. And I know one day I'm going to die in the middle of a project,
Hmm.
but I would much rather die in the middle of a project than feel like I completed everything.
Do you want to release work after you're dead?
I think that would be great. Like a lot of my unreleased or unfinished stuff, I think people might be interested in that if they want to see, halfway finished stuff. I wouldn't mind if people just, publish diaries and everything about me. I'm an open book.
Yeah, because something that I go back and, well, not even really go back and forth on. I am not really a fan of, like, the best example I could probably give is Kurt Cobain. Like,
Uh-huh.
he dies, and then cut to 2018, and I'm in an Urban Outfitters, and there's a Kurt Cobain journal being sold, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, he would hate this. This would make him fucking crazy.
It was very
And
intimate too. I read that and
yeah,
it has a lot of his very personal stuff in there. Like when
and
he lost his virginity and stuff like that.
yeah, I mean, it's just wild. And I understand, whatever. Hopefully, I don't know, the money goes to his kids and it makes their life better. And that's the only way I could sort of rationalize it, in a sense of like, at least it's a
I
way of
felt
him
it
like supporting his family.
I felt it really humanized him. Like it's kind of underhanded to release his private stuff, but
Yeah.
when I read it in high school, and because I just found it randomly, someone had abandoned it in a room, and I picked it up. I was like, "What is this?" And I started reading it, and and it really like humanized. He was a real person, he wasn't just this celebrity that made art and stuff like that. He had these struggles and these kind of he was kind of an outsider and stuff. And I feel like if I died and they published all my unreleased stuff, maybe someone could find themselves in me, and they could feel like a little bit more okay with being a human.
Couldn't they find that with the work that you put out on your own?
I mean, yeah, but also I limit what I put out. There's so much stuff that I
Sure,
haven't released because I don't think it's good enough for the public, or
sure.
nothing that's too personal. I'm very open with, I'll post very in-depth stuff about my life, despite, not posting my full name. But I'm
Yeah,
very
okay.
open with my history. So I wouldn't mind if the stuff that I keep secret was released.
Well, I love the idea of creating like an afterlife, death folder, right? Where it's just like this is the stuff that maybe I wasn't comfortable or you know secure enough to release, and I think it should be out there. So this will be like the death folder, right? This is all the stuff that I don't necessarily have to be there for and have to like feel those feelings when they're released, right? They'll just go out, and like you said, people could experience them and maybe get a different viewpoint of you and your work or whatever it is.
Mm.
And then you don't have to be conscious of any of that
Yeah, yeah.
happening.
You don't have to worry about the fallout if people don't like it or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
I
it's like another, it's like your second release.
I have my popular series is the Today's Mission series where I have pranks or whatever, and I always had the idea of making a video where it was Today's Mission, die, and it was just I would post that, I put that in my will, so that
Yeah.
would be my announcement if I died while I was still popular on the internet. It would be the announcement of that oh, here we go, free R.I.P. FREAKBaiT, he died, and this is the final mission. He did his final mission.
I
I thought
love
it'd be
it.
funny. Yeah,
I
just
love
put
it.
that in there. Hopefully, people don't misconstrue it and then and also kill themselves or something.
Yeah,
You
maybe
know?
there might needs to be some sort of disclaimer with that
Yeah,
one. But
this is a one person mission.
yeah, I mean, I've had the idea for a while now of recording episodes, and because, with podcasting, it's so easy to schedule episodes for, 6 months from now, a year. Like I just have this. I had this idea maybe like 2 years ago where I was like, I should start recording episodes and maybe talking about certain things or talking to certain people or whatever it is, and just scheduling them to be released, 20 years from now. And
That would be cool.
if I'm still here and hopefully podcasting still exists and it's like a medium that people are still listening to, then, maybe I jump back into whatever program is releasing podcasts in 20 years and I just set the date for another 10 years or whatever it is. You
But have
know,
like a dead man's hand kind of thing where you always have it scheduled a little bit, like
yeah,
maybe 2 or 3 months in advance, and then if you die within that time, it'll automatically post. It'll be like,
yes.
if you're hearing this, I'm dead.
Exactly. Like I really want to, 'cause even with this podcast now, it's like I don't plan on dying anytime soon, and I hope I don't. And sometimes I do have episodes scheduled, maybe a month, 2 months in advance. So who knows? I could get hit by a bus, and then that's it. And then everyone knows I'm dead, and then they get a notification on their phone that there's a new episode, and I've been
Yeah.
dead for 6 months or whatever it is. So I always loved the thought of that. So it's definitely something I've thought about, or even just doing one episode where it's just like, this is the death episode. I'm dead, and we're going to talk about it or whatever. And, if I'm lucky enough to know when I'm going to die, or if I'm given, 6 months to live, I guess that would be the real way to do it. Hopefully I get a little bit of a heads up and I could do that because I really want to be able to create something. If this podcast even still exists, then who knows? But I do love the idea of creating or sharing work after you're gone, but having control of it.
Yeah, yeah. Like release it after you're gone rather than, someone finding it and then releasing it without
Yeah, it
your
just kind of,
consent or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I said with the Kurt Cobain stuff, it just bummed me out a little bit because it's like, man, and there's, I know that, musicians with like getting unreleased music put out that they necessarily didn't finish. That always kind of
Hmm.
bummed me out too. I mean, I don't know. I know people want to keep getting content from people, and there is, I don't know. It's a
They always
complicated.
was what was it, David Foster Wallace? Like they released The Fisher King, his like
Yeah.
unfinished novel.
Yep.
And so it's like half the book. It's like, do you really want to read half a book?
And he's another
And
person that you're like that he would definitely hate that. There's no
you'd have
way
been
he would
pissed.
have liked
Yeah.
that. I mean, that guy had very obviously very strong opinions about things, and I think that that would have made him a little crazy. But I guess you're dead, right? So what's it fucking matter? But it still kind of bums me out. Well, I do. So I like that. I'm glad that I don't know. I'm glad that death and mortality plays a part in, we sort of talked about it in the beginning, right? Like the motivation to
Mhm.
create and put out, work. And it also seems like, obviously you have a lot of things that you want to put out in the future, and death is sort of helping you stay motivated and put that work out.
I feel like death is like that it's a constant reminder, it's it's a limited time, so it kind of focuses on what matters. It cuts through the noise. And if you
Yeah,
have that voice in the back of your head, that's not like fear of death, but kind of like memento mori, reminding you like you're gonna die. You better get stuff done. You're gonna die. Not like, oh no, you're gonna die. Be paranoid, be afraid,
sure.
but more so like you know, there's a time, there's a clock ticking, and you got to get it out.
Death plays a role in the motivation. Does death sort of play a role in what you're creating?
So did you so you looked at my content, my videos that I put on FreakBait and stuff, and so I'm assuming you probably mostly saw the Today's Mission series,
I did,
and
yeah.
then did you see
I'm
any
a
like
new
the
I'm
butt
a new
crack
fan,
mirror or
so
yeah,
give
because I
it
have a
to
lot
me.
of
Yeah.
other stuff that's outside of that series. I
Yeah.
have one called The Starving Artist, and it's
Okay.
based off of a story from my book, and it's about an artist that goes in and he's hanging up a bunch of paintings, and then he puts this plaque down that says The Starving Artist, and then he hangs himself in front, so he is the last uh,
Whoa.
piece of art, and it's like it's The Starving Artist,
Yeah.
and I posted that, and people were expecting jokes because I mostly just post shit posts and jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then when I post something serious, people are like, "Whoa, what is this?" I have another series or another video that I'm working on called The Memory Jars. It's also based off the story in my book, and it's about this woman who keeps memories in jars. She has these little jars that are glowing, and you can look inside of them. But when you look inside, they fade away to nothing, and they go away. And then as she gets older, the memories go away and go away until she's left with holding this one jar, and she's looking down at this one jar, and then she opens it, and then it goes to dark, and then that's the end of that. And it's kind of like I guess, dementia or just death
Mm.
in general, because you are your memories. That's really all you are.
Do
So when
you
you lose those, you kind of die as well.
yeah. Yeah, do you feel like you have like the balance figured out, like between like, you, like you said, you're sort of known for, at least you have a lot of these like joke type posts, and then you're also
Yeah,
creating this very serious content. Do you feel like you sort of have like the balance of that figured out, or how do you
I
sort of
love doing the
navigate that?
rug pull. Like the
Yeah.
the whole idea of that is the rug pull. Like so, even that so a lot of my jokes are the rug pull where it gives you this kind of garden path sentence or whatever you think is going one way, and then when it gets to the end, it goes a completely different way. But then I also want to do that kind of with my work in general, where you think that you're getting something funny because you're used to always, you come to me for a joke or I'm Pagliacci, and then suddenly it's something really deep and heavy, and you're like, wait, where's the punchline? Like what? I wanted the punchline. I had one with the Master Craftsman. That was a recent one that I posted or reposted, and people were saying, "What's the punchline? Where's the joke?" Like I wanted to laugh in the comments because it was about a master. Did you see that video with the Master
I
Craftsman?
did, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So and that ends in death as well,
Yeah.
right there. So I guess the punchline was that he was useless, so the king killed him. But it's not a very funny punchline. It's kind of just a punch to the gut.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess people that have followed you for a while would at some point sort of figure it out, right? Where they're like, okay, it's not always just going to be a joke. You're going to get other content, but I would assume there. I don't know if you're a comment reader, but I'm sure there's some people that are like hoping or looking for you to stick to one lane, I
Oh
guess.
yeah. If
Yeah.
anything that I don't post, if anything that I post, it's not a mission. there'll be a bunch of people like, what's the mission?
Really?
Give me a mission. Oh yeah. Oh, constantly. Yeah. And there was a while where it was really demotivating because I would post a mission, something that, I could shit out in 30 minutes,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
just pop it out in Blender and then put it out. It's an 8-second loop. And then something I spend 2 weeks on, on the 8-second video, it gets, 10 million views. Something I spend 2 weeks on and pour my heart and soul into it and try to, say something with meaning. And then it gets, 10,000 views and a bunch of comments. They're saying, what's today's mission? And it was really demotivating.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
then I got to the point where it was like, I don't really care about the views. It's about making something that exists. So even if only 10 people see it and one person out of that 10 people it actually affects and they can, it emotionally impacts them, then it was worth it. Those 2 weeks were worth it. And I stopped, chasing the views, even though it is pretty demotivating when you put a lot of time into something and then, only 200 people watch it or whatever.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast too, right? It's just like social media and how we've basically just turned into this world where way too much value goes into views. And I've had conversations with people about it. I interview a lot of authors, and obviously there's a lot there in the sense of selling books and, getting on certain lists and being a bestseller and all of that. So I guess it's like always kind of been there, just in different versions. And now we're just like on the social media version of it, where it's like, oh, well, how many views do you get and how many followers do you have? And, I saw there was some actor or actress who was on, I think it was on TikTok, where they're like, I just came back from an audition and like I felt like I nailed the audition, and at the end of the audition they asked how many followers I had on Instagram. And
Yeah.
you're just like, well, wait, no, but if this is the person for the role, who gives a shit how many followers they have? And again, this could be like a whole nother conversation, but I get it. I mean, that shouldn't come into, our head as much as it does, I guess. But hopefully, I think the trick is just not thinking about it. And then it's like, okay, if you want to think about the views and whatever after you post it, it's not the end of the world. But I just don't want to ever be making something and while I'm making it be like, well, I hope this, it hits 100,000 whatever,
Right.
you know. I
Yeah.
think you're doomed at that point as an artist or whatever you're creating. If you're strictly just creating for the views, I think you're doomed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would just be really demotivating.
Yeah, because you're gonna fail. Everyone's gonna fail, especially in the beginning. And if that's just, if that's the whole point, then
And it's like a hard metric on like if you succeeded or failed. It's like as if the world is giving you the top 8 friends,
oh gosh,
like it tells you
we're
like,
back to
oh yeah, we like
MySpace.
you more. Yeah, like I love that thing. I think they should bring that back because that just causes such a
Yeah,
discourse among
right.
people. But it's kind of like a hard metric where an algorithm is telling that. It's like saying like, oh, this is what you're valued at. This is what you're worth. This is how
Yeah.
many people think you're good and stuff. This is how many likes you got. This is how many dislikes. You look at these hard metrics and it's difficult because before you could just kind of imagine what people think, and now you know what people think, or at least
Yeah.
what an algorithm thinks.
Yeah. Obviously, I reached out to you to come on the podcast. I could just tell pretty quickly that you would be a great fit for the show. And obviously I was excited that you would come on, but I think I'm just learning more and more how perfect you are for this podcast.
The
For sure.
unboxing with Lily. I'm not sure if you've seen that video
I don't think I
where
saw that, no.
oh, it's a little girl. She's doing an unboxing video, and it's her grandma's casket. Yeah. Or what else? I don't know. I
Yeah.
have so many different very dark humor. My books and stuff too.
Yeah.
All
Yeah. Yeah.
very
Yeah.
like I recently published Void Man. That's a splatterpunk, or at least one of like it's an 800-page book. It's a choose your own adventure style interactive fiction book, and one of it's splatterpunk. Like there's a lot of because with interactive fiction or the choose your own adventure, there's all those death scenes. There's wrong choices to make,
Yeah.
and so death is a huge part. I think there's over 100 death scenes in the book, like where you die as the
Mhm.
main character. And then I'm working on a book right now that's also a because I'm doing a whole splatterpunk series of like choose your own adventure style books. And splatterpunk is all it's like kind of just over the top violence in a comical sense, where it's just like not it's like Final Destination kind of thing. And the book I'm working on now, it's just I have to get really creative with the deaths because it's basically you have this, you were injected with this drug that basically any pheromone that comes off you, or there's this pheromone that's coming off you, and anybody that's near you that feels or that you know inhales it or whatever, they are instantly overcome with like violent rage. If you ever heard of the comic book Crossed, it's made by Garth Ennis, who made The Boys, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
super. Yeah, so you know how The Boys is like way violent. It's like over the
It's
top.
so it's a lot of fun, but yeah, it's very
It's
violent.
super gory. So
Yeah.
Crossed is even worse than that. It's like it's he pushed the furthest limit. It's very transgressive in its violence. And it's because it's this like disease that affects people where they go crazy, and it's the deepest, darkest, thoughts you can have. All those like suppressed thoughts or whatever, you just act upon them. So
Mhm.
people just turn into these crazy, violent people. And it's kind of like that. Like the whole book is, so you have to stay away from people because they constantly kill each other and try to kill you whenever they're near you. And so I had to come up with so many different creative ways to kill people because you can't just like keep on shooting people or whatever. It gets boring. You have to get
Sure.
really, really creative with stuff. And it's a comic, or it's a comedy. It's like right in the beginning, your first choice, because it starts where your roommate comes in, he's butt naked, covered in blood, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to kill you," and he's holding a frying pan, and you either hit him with a lava lamp or a bong, and from those two choices, it spawns off into two completely different stories. I'm 120 pages into it right now, but it's basically two different books, all from those initial choices right there. So it's a comedy, but it's like very violent. It's very over the top. It's like a comic kind of violence rather than serious violence.
I love it. I love it. I'm excited to check some stuff out. Like I said, I'm a new fan, so it's like I'm still experiencing a lot of your stuff, and I'm excited to check out some of these books and for some of the new stuff to come out. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. I don't know if I
Well,
said that
thank you.
in the beginning here. Maybe I should have started with that, but I would assume obviously I'm a fan. I invited you to come on the podcast. I'm excited to have you, but yeah, I'm very excited to check out more of your work, and all this sounds great.
Because it is very death. There's a lot of
Yeah.
death in those books, and then so that's definitely something that you might be interested in. Though it is a little bit more of a comic kind of death rather than serious. It's not. It doesn't really take seriously. It's more of like Crank meets like the movie Crank
Yeah.
meets Final Destination meets Idiocracy. I'd say like that's probably the best description
I
of the
love all of
book.
that. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
into it.
I have all sorts of death media too. I collect, faces of death and on all sorts of traces of death. I have all the old school VHSs. I have the Jim Jones, Jonestown speech on vinyl. All the Charles Manson stuff on vinyl. I mean, I'm a big what is that? Murderphilia or whatever, murderbilia
Oh,
collector.
oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I got all sorts. I have I mean, I even collect like crime scene stuff. Like I have or not crime scene stuff, but crime related stuff. Like what's his name? I have the OJ uh Pog. They had a Pog back in the day of OJ. You remember Pogs?
Of
I got the
course, of
OJ
course.
Pog. I got I
What is the
got
what is the image on the OJ Pog?
it's OJ. It's either I did it or I didn't do it. It's a, you could flip it, and it's him smiling or him sad. It's a classic.
That's so
And
good.
uh And then I got the Menendez brothers were in the background of a baseball or a basketball card. There was a basketball card.
I saw
And
that.
yeah, I have that right there. Like I collect a bunch
You
of
have that's so funny.
the basketball card. Yeah. I
That's
collect all sorts of weird murderabilia bullshit. I love it. It's I'm obsessed with death, like how the podcast is. I have all sorts of books too, like about the stuff. I have the Uncle Fester books, and I wrote a cannibal cookbook as I guess so. I wrote this under a pseudonym, and it's all about cannibalism. I have the history, the psychology, the science, nutrition, and then it gets into the like how to butcher a body and how to process it, and then it has a recipe book in the back. And I wrote it all with the idea that it's this like 80-year-old old school cannibal who's a very like high intellectual that was in this scene, and I made up this whole thing. He's wow, let me see if I have the book. I'll think, yeah, here, right here. And and I wrote this whole book under a pseudonym, and I don't mention that it's written by FREAKBaiT. This is actually probably one of the first times that I've mentioned it in public that I wrote this, but I'm not too worried because the thing is, put these out, and I want it so someone will come across it and not know about me. So it's okay if someone knows about FreakBait and goes and looks up Eating People, because it's called Eating People: A Cannibal's Guide to Fine Dining, and by Dr. Ambrose Hawthorne. And it's all very serious. I wrote the entire book from like a cannibal perspective,
Yeah.
and I put it out as like a troll because I want someone to come across it without any context, thinking it's real. And you read through it. The whole story was that my uncle died, and we had to go clean out his butcher shop. And in the basement, there were all these boxes, and inside the boxes were all these books that were Eating People: A Cannibal's Fine Guide to Dining, or a Guide to Fine Dining, and it's all about eating human beings. And like I made up the idea of carnum. You know how like pigs are pork and cows are beef,
Sure.
and then human meat would be carnum, which just means meat in Latin. But I
Oh,
wrote the whole thing, and it's let me see, I have it right in my hand. So it is 320 something pages.
holy shit. That's wild.
Yeah,
I
I,
love
I
it.
spent a good while researching it and writing it, and yeah, so I put that out there with the idea that someone will come across it thinking it's real. I actually left a couple copies. There's these little local like libraries in the neighborhoods. Have you ever seen those? Take a book or
Oh
leave a
yeah,
book.
yeah, yeah. Sure, of course. Yeah,
And so I've
yeah.
went up and I've put the book in there, the Cannibal Cookbook, and I hope people have come
That's
across. They're going
perfect.
over there thinking something will be nice, and then they come across
Yeah, you
something
got to just like
horrifying.
start sneaking into libraries and just putting in libraries.
Yeah. But I wrote that just as a major troll kind of thing, and it's all a death based book, I guess you could say.
What was like your main, was there like a main point of reference for the research? Like where do you go to do like the type of research for that?
So I spent a while researching, and there's several different sections. So for the actual like processing, all I did was just look up beef and pork processing. A lot of pork processing would be very similar to how you would process a human body,
Yeah,
because we're just long pig.
sure.
And but like all the different stuff, I was mostly looking on Wikipedia. There's so much. I have the history. I learned so much about cannibalism, about how cannibalism is kind of had a lot of important roles in human history. And the what is it, the custom of the sea, if you've heard of that, the custom of the sea,
No.
where basically, so if you're out and you're stranded at sea and you're all starving, you draw straws, and it's okay to cannibalize, to murder and cannibalize someone on the sea. And this was all the way up until, man, it was fairly recently, where they murdered like a cabin boy and cannibalized him. And it was just, cannibalism has been a huge part of human history, for a long, long time, throughout all different cultures and stuff too.
Would
Let's see. I'm trying to look.
would you got to come back on and we got to do a whole episode on cannibalism, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be. I'd have to go back and get a little bit more refreshed
Yeah,
with
yeah,
all the
yeah.
stuff. I also have a cannibal cookbook. Or actually, I have two cannibal cookbooks that were written by an actual cannibal. He's kind of a shithead, so I wouldn't recommend him. But he's
Okay.
a Nico Clow, I think it's pronounced. It's
Uh,
Claux, and he's an actual serial killer and a cannibal that got away with it. He cannibalized. He was in, I think he was in Britain, or it might have been Canada. I don't remember, but he cannibalized this one German exchange student, and then he was deported to Japan, and they didn't have specific laws against cannibalism, so he was just let free. And then he went on to write books about it. He starred in like porno movies where he played like a cannibal. It's pretty interesting, his whole story too. But yeah, I could talk all about cannibalism for a,
I
a whole
seems like
podcast as
it
well.
seems like you can, and that's so interesting, and definitely something that I think is worth doing a full episode on if you're into it. Like I said, feel
Absolutely, yeah, that'd be fun.
we'll we'll have to we'll have to talk more after this, and you could take some time to do a refresher, and we could sort of discuss what we'd want to exactly hit upon. But I would love to do that. I mean, that's very much in the vein of this show. I mean, I want to cover every aspect of death, and cannibalism is 100% a part of that. So let's let's talk about that more.
Yeah.
That would be
Did
fun,
you
man.
know? that cannibalism is actually technically legal in the United States. Only one state has a specific law against cannibalism. I think it was Idaho, and it was because during the yeah, it is Idaho. Idaho is the only state in America that has laws against cannibalism, and it was during the Satanic Panic in the '80s, and they were afraid that they were cannibalizing people, so they had
Yeah.
to put it in the law books. But technically, you can eat another human being's flesh as long as you're not mutilating their corpse, as long as you didn't murder them. The whole Armin Muse case in Germany, have you heard of that? The guy who it was like consensual cannibalism,
No.
and he went to prison. Oh yeah, there was a cannibal forum where they met each other. Maybe we could save that for for a different podcast.
No,
But yeah,
that's
yeah, there's
write that. Yeah, let me write that down. Um, because that seems like, I mean, that sounds like a whole episode right there, but that could definitely be a part of it.
but it was all consensual. The guy that he ate wanted to
Yeah.
be murdered. He actually ate parts of his body with him before he killed him,
What?
and it was contractual. It was all completely agreed upon that he was going to be murdered and eaten. It was like a sexual fetish of his. And then and then
Wow.
after he was murdered, yeah, he was still considered a murderer and a cannibal and
That's
went
a
to prison.
Yeah, that is not ideal. I mean,
Yeah,
it seems like a risky thing to get into, even if you have consent. But
yeah,
I did not expect this episode to get into cannibalism. But
yeah. I mean, I
here we
didn't
are.
know. Yeah,
All right, so we're coming up on an hour here. I try to keep these around an hour. I don't. This is really kind of flown by here, and you're definitely coming back on. I want you back on the podcast. There's one other question that I had that I did want to ask, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here. You're also a musician. You create music, is that right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm curious. I like to ask a lot of the guests, not to necessarily get into like the planning of your funeral. That's something that comes up a lot is like, oh, do you have any idea what your funeral would look like, what you want in that sense? A lot of other times we sort of get into, would you want, a playlist? Who would be on the playlist? So, of course, I'm curious in the sense of like, if you do have any ideas on what your funeral would look like, what that would be. But being a musician yourself, is that something that you would want to maybe play a bigger part in? What I'm sort of getting to here is, have you ever thought about scoring or writing music for your own funeral?
That would be fun. That you could guide everybody's emotional journey
Yeah.
through the day. That would be incredible. I never had the idea to score my own funeral before this, so I think that would be an awesome idea.
Well,
It
you
never
put that in your
occurred to me
pocket.
before
That's
that.
yours.
I really feel like a funeral is a party for everybody else. I'm dead, so I'm not there.
Yeah.
So whatever music they want to play, if they want to play, talk radio or cumbia the whole time, it's cool if they enjoy that because that's just my corpse there.
See, that's
You know,
interesting because I look at it as like this is my last hurrah. This is like my last party that I get to throw. So I mean, maybe I'm just selfish, but it's like I want to have full control over my funeral, and you're in the sense of more let other people decide, the vibe.
oh yeah, I'm not much for pageantry. Like I didn't go to any of my graduations, high school, college, any of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't show up to my own funeral if I didn't have to. Like
You could bail on it, I guess, right? Is just be like, just throw an empty casket up there.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't be there in the sense of, like my consciousness.
Sure.
Hopefully not. That would suck. Just have to be stuck in the body.
That would
You're
be a
just stuck in
nightmare.
your body for all eternity.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I really don't mind what happens to me after I die. I could be donated to necrophiliacs if it gives them pleasure. I don't. I don't really care.
Top five worst funerals right there is
There was that one. There's a Stephen King short story about a guy who was assumed to be dead, and during the autopsy, he gets a boner, and that's how they know he's still alive. It's a real story, no joke,
yeah.
by Stephen King. He gets a boner, and that's how they know he's alive still.
I
And
mean, however you got to communicate, I guess, right?
right.
I can't believe we're at an hour already. It seems like we're going to get you back, though. We're going to do some cannibalism talk on a future episode, so I'm very excited for that. And again, you're more than welcome to come back whenever you want. I feel like we barely touched the surface on a lot of stuff here, but it was a great conversation. I'm really glad you came on, and thanks for doing the podcast.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It was really fun.